Hey Manuel, welcome to your ArchDaily interview. First of all, congratulations on receiving the UIA 2030 awards in the SDG 8 category, focusing on protecting labor rights and promoting safe working environments. To begin with, could you introduce yourself and tell us more about the team behind the project and maybe a broader approach of your studio?
Well, thank you very much. My name is Manuel Cervantes, and I'm head of Manuel Cervantes Estudio here in Mexico. We have a lot of projects abroad, but we are based in Mexico City. You mentioned the people involved in the project. So let's say that this recognition, this award is not for me, not even for my studio. I think that it's for the combination between the client, the people, the workers that were essential part of the design, and all the team inside my studio. Also, the contractor, the team that built the houses, and this because it was interesting, let's say, to design something and then discover that through the process of starting the construction, they find and they manage to find these different solutions. For an example, the project was designed with wood, the wood structure for the canopy, and they discovered that it was easier to find bamboo because of the let's say plantations on the area. So we changed the whole design of the structure and the lattices, the facades. So I think that they are also a relevant part of the design process. A little bit about the studio. We are an architectural firm. We have been working in a very, very wide range of typologies and projects. We have been working developing subway stations, airport terminals, and these small projects for temporary housing, passing through a big variety again of typologies, housing projects, hospitality, mixed use, etc. And probably the philosophy of the projects are always the same, no matter if we change the budget, if we change the client or the typology. We try to focus the design process with the same philosophy, with the same approach to things. And that's kind of, let's say, the DNA of the office.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Focusing on the project, the Tierras Temporary Housing Units. I would like to ask you first, how was your impression of the site at the beginning of the project? But also, as I understand that the site actually comes from the typology of the request, to create a housing unit for the temporary workers, as in the project's name. So, my questions overall would be like, the temporary housings are often treated as a purely functional projects, like for housing units of the workers. But in this case, your project places strong emphasis on the dignity and the domestic life of the workers. So why was it important to rethink this temporary housing beyond the minimum shelter requirements? And again, what was your first impression of the site, basically? Yeah.
Well, the story, it's kind of bizarre and funny. When we received the commission, the client was willing to develop a housing for the workers. He didn't knew at all the concept of temporary housing, or even who was the client, the user of this house at all. So they invited us, and and two things happened. No, first we arrived to the site, and they were already cleaned out some area. They clean out the trees, thinking with on the idea of creating a space to develop the houses. And again, they didn't knew uh, exactly who was living already there in those houses. Uh, for them, it was only the idea of doing something, uh, let's say, to create a space for the workers to live. So we started by talking with the people, creating tables, not to design in a collaborative way, but to hear them, to understand the real needs, and to understand, let's say, what was a family or a group of people for them. And then by doing that, we discovered that uh, the plantation, and let's say the people working on the plantation were not only workers, no, were also uh, immigrants passing through this area and spending months or years there, recovering, gaining more money to continue with the journey to the United States. We discovered that, and we also discovered that there were no only like families in the conventional or traditional way there, no, but the constitution of male workers, female workers, um, families made by single mothers living with the in-laws, grandparents living with the grandchildren. You know, so we discovered that the idea of a house for a family in this kind of situations, it's not the it's not the reality. No, the reality again, it's these different constitutions that create different kind of families. um, so again, by talking with them, we learned that, and we design something to prevent or to avoid uh, spaces restraining family situations. No, because again, it's not the same if you have a couple with kids than if you have a single mother living with a with her father-in-law. No, it's completely different. How you use the space, and how you need privacy, and how you create a dignified space to have privacy and other matters. So we learned that again in these tables. We recorded everything, and again, not to design something as a collaboration with them, but to design something understanding them. And then on the other part, by visiting the place, by driving around for hours, we understood that normally these people are not only these immigrants that are in a temporary phase, but most of the people working there, they live in hometowns near the plantation, but they used to spend like an hour and a half or even 2 hours by bus commuting every day to the plantations. No, so the idea of a temporary housing for these people, not to spend 4 hours daily commuting, but to have a space, a place, uh, let's say between Monday and Friday, it was very, very important. No, not only again to create dignity, but also to create quality time for them. Um, through time, temporary housing or workers housing has been look at something that it's bad, no, that you have your workers as slaves working where living where they work. But if we understand that in a different way, if you give them the opportunity to avoid 4 hours of commuting every day, you're giving them the opportunity to use that time to do whatever they want. No, so the term temporary, again, it has these two dimensions. No, the first one, that is people avoiding commuting, and the other group, people spending some time gaining or regaining resources and energy to continue with the migration phase to the United States. So the other thing that happened while we were there, like I was telling you, they clear out this space for us to design something, and by exploring, we discovered the let's say the opportunity of using the existing landscape. No, that it's not a natural landscape because this is a plantation. No, so it has agreed to create efficiency on how the company, let's say, extract these from the trees. So we discovered and we showed them that all the people, even the animals, were resting in the shade of the trees, and we showed them that it was the most simple and logical thing to do, to place the houses under the same effect. No, using the trees to cool down, to create a nicer atmosphere, to create shade, to even, let's say, reduce the force of the rainwater, and to create also certain scale. No, I think that it's beautiful to see the pictures now and understand how the houses are part of a bigger system, an ecosystem, but also it creates a beautiful scale between the trees and the architecture. So that's a little bit what happened when we received the commission. We meet the people and we understood the site.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you actually opened up to my second question for in this context. The architecture is heavily based on the passive environmental strategy rather than using mechanical systems. So could you maybe elaborate on how the project responds to the warm and humid climate through this use of natural systems? And you also mentioned you used a bamboo as a main material. So what led you to work with these materials and what advantages did it offer, both technically and socially?
Well, I mean, first of all, resources for a project like this are very, very important, no, to understand which are the resources that you can use and which are the resources that you need to avoid to use. It's very important. No, so no electricity, no sewage, no water was there. So like the first intuition was to use whatever that was there already. Again, the shade, the change in temperature by being under the trees, the breeze that, let's say, create a perfect temperature under the trees, and also understanding other factors like the humidity coming from the ground, and even the thermal temperature coming from the ground. So we use the most vernacular or primitive elements that you can think of for the project. No, a stilt house that provokes natural ventilation and destroys all the temperature gaining inside the space from the ground. Uh, Open facades with these lattices and mosquito nets to provoke cross ventilation, pitch roofs with also the chimney effect extracting warm uh, interior temperature. Um, and and basically those are, let's say, the passive elements or designs that normally you see in this kind of weather. No, and by that we don't need air conditioning. Obviously, we need electricity for lighting and other elements. Uh, we recollect a lot of water, so it's enough water so we can have uh, kitchen, restrooms, and bathrooms connected to this grid. Um, and about materials, like I was telling you, we discover on site by looking at the area that bamboo was something uh, uh, find on hand, that it was simple to get, simple to move from another plantation, avoiding any expensive uh, or other things transportation. So let's say that the materiality by using bamboo, the hand labor from local also people allow us to get into the right budget, and let's say that at the end the atmosphere, the quality, the domesticity of the project doesn't come from a design or an aesthetic. It comes from the pragmatic solution of using all this vernacular knowledge. Um, Even the furniture works like that. No, people in this region, they don't use beds, they use hammocks, and that's because the hammock has the same passive eco techniques. No, a stilt house has. So, no, by disconnecting a cushion, a bed from the ground, it allows you to have cool natural breeze underneath you. So again, it's kind of simple what we did. Probably it was difficult to convince uh, the client and uh, the the design to not to overdo or over design, but to be practical and simple. No.
Yeah. The end image is really inspiring for actually further projects as well.
Yeah, for sure. For us as a studio, it was a milestone project because we started reinforcing the idea of these vernacular elements, and we have been pushing our clients to look into that direction.
Yeah, that's great. So maybe looking for the broader framework, could you maybe talk about the role of architecture in improving living conditions in rural territories like this that are often overlooked within the larger agendas, maybe?
I think that sustainability cannot be understood only as a technical efficiency or some kind of performance, um, because sustainability being a very very relevant and important thing, it's not the only thing that creates atmosphere quality or even empathy with people. No, I think that sustainability, it's a technique, it's a even a profession that we can push, or we need to push into the agenda. But it's not only that. No, uh, in many rural territories, architecture is absent from larger conversations about development, and yet these places contain deep knowledge about climate, resources, and collective life. No, that's why I started this conversation explaining to you that we didn't knew nothing at the beginning. No, for us it was this conversation, this idea of absorbing everything from the people that has been living here for decades, instead of trying to impose something. No, um, so let's say that the project, or this kind of projects, uh, are trying to recognize that intelligence and translate into a contemporary living condition with limited resources. No, because probably 90% of the world are in need of this knowledge, um, and I think that every firm in the world needs to at least do something, even small like this, just to gain confidence, uh, or to learn from the simpleness of these projects.
Yeah. So my final question is, actually, you maybe partially answered it, but why do you think projects like this are important within the broader framework for the UN
Mhm.
SDGs?
Well, I think that it's important, like I was saying, to understand these kind of projects. Maybe because they remind us that the future of housing will depend less on excess and more on intelligence and adaptation. Like I was saying, the world looks more like this than it looks to Paris. Um, so I think that this kind of projects, it can give us a lot of knowledge, to start creating a wider or bigger conscious on how we design uh, other projects in our studios. No, climate responsive architecture is not only about technology. Um, every time that you force the project to be dependent on the technology, uh, you are creating a problem. Even high-end hospitality projects, uh, or at least this is what we practice at the office, uh, are we need to design these projects not on the dependency of technology. No, maybe you can't avoid the use of air conditioning for a high-end project, but you don't need to force that project to be dependent. No, I think that, architecture needs to give options to the clients, options to decide if they want to use electricity or not, or if they want to use air conditioning or not. But today we see buildings in most of the countries that are glass boxes, without windows, without natural ventilation, that are forced to use uh, air conditioning. So again, for us, these projects, it's a little bit a reminder that we don't need to follow the technology agenda, that we need sometimes uh, to put the question on the table with clients and other designers, and what's best for a project in terms of passiveness, in terms of consumption, of resources, etc. No, so we believe that architecture should contribute not only to shelter, but to more equitable and humane ways of inhabiting the world.
Yeah, great ending. Thank you very much. Thank you for
Thank
these
you.
kind answers.